And as always, we'll start with a conclusion here. Thunderbirds is going to be a lot like Pandemic. It's going to have the obvious comparisons here. This game is going to play differently. So don't get wrapped up that this is just Pandemic with a different theme on it. It's going to have some similarities, moving around the world, going to different countries as opposed to cities, and it's subtle. But the way you're moving in and out of the ships, the way you're going up into space, the way the hood is moving, a little more predictable, a little bit. You kind of know how things are going to move, and you have the power to move the hood forward, which is the timer, which is going to be the epidemic cards, if you will, if you're trying to make that comparison. This is going to be different enough. If you're a fan of Pandemic, you're likely to be a fan of this, but I think it's different enough that's going to be a fun experience for you. But they're similar enough that if you like one, you're probably going to like the other. Although Pandemic is probably the most popular cooperative game you can buy at Target or Walmart now, that it's going to be the standard. This is not going to be as good, but it is still going to be a very solid game. The components are going to be really nice. Now, the components are going to be nicer than what you're going to get in Pandemic. This is going to be more, even better than, obviously, Forbidden Island. This is going to be better. The price will be a little bit high. The theme may draw some people in. The Thunderbirds theme, it's aged. It's 50 years old now. And it was a children's show, so those guys, still around that watch the show maybe have shared it with their children. So it's going to appeal to some people. The components are pretty good. You got some dice rolling that you're going to be doing in this game, so there's going to be some luck involved. You're going to have to be okay with that. It's going to be, but there's a way to mitigate that. So the cards will have, if you see here, you're going to bring Scott and Gordon. You're going to +2 to your roll. So having people in the right positions are going to be the same way. But if you need that Hail Mary and you just want to roll the dice and see if you can get it done, you can do that too. It's not, it has a little bit of Defenders of the Realm in it in this regard, where the luck is going to be here, the dice rolling, as opposed to Pandemic. It's 5 cards. It's a research station. It's an automatic thing. Defenders of the Realm took Pandemic, included some luck and some dice rolling to see if you defeated the monsters and so forth. So a little bit more luck in this, which could be frustrating for some. You've seen that in the Fire Rescue series. So that's going to appeal to some people to have a little bit more luck. Some people will not like the luck. They like the more predetermined of Pandemic. The rules are very clear. This is a Matt Leacock game, so it's going to be high quality. You'll be able to play it up. It's going to be simple enough to play with nearly anyone. Obviously, fans of the theme will enjoy it a little bit more, but I think this is going to be a solid game. It's not going to sell well, I don't think. I don't think it's going to be a huge hit. The theme is going to draw people in. I think it isolated almost, where sometimes a license like The Walking Dead can make it larger. I'm not sure this is going to have quite the following that a lot of licensing or theme has. It's kind of weird or odd to me that this game is out. The mechanics work. I think they work well with what they're trying to accomplish. I think, even though I've never seen this show, I feel like I'm in the show. I like globetrotting, and you have this little pink car, the Fab, that can go over water and fly, and that's fairly fun. And not crazy about how small these are. It kind of reminds me of Life, if you will, the game. But the ships are different. So this one will hold 3. This one can hold 2. So organizing people and getting them where you need them to be it is fun and interesting, where with Pandemic it was a little bit more predetermined. This is going to be what do you need to do, and you can move other people that aren't on your turn, and that's a little interesting as opposed to Pandemic, where it was a little bit harder to do unless you were the dispatcher. Overall, I'm going to say this is a game that you should at least play. I'd probably recommend purchasing if you're a fan of cooperative games or have a need. It can totally be played solo if you want to play multiple characters. There's a solo variant in the rules, an official solo variant, but I'm more along the lines to play 3 to 4 characters and kind of a globetrot, and I have fun planning those things out. So the solo play is there. And I tend to like these cooperative games a little bit more solo, but they can definitely be played with a group of people. And this one will please, I think. I want to try out the Fab cards, moving the hood up for the Fab cards, and see if that is worth it at all. But right now, I don't think that really works for me. Although there may be a timing issue while you want. I also did feel like sometimes you didn't have anything to do. So you got your person in position. There wasn't kind of a catch-all where you could do that. I felt like maybe that's a weakness of the game. So sometimes you're passing and kind of wasting time, even though you don't want to waste time on that. And I like a disaster track. I don't like how it moves the cards without being pushed. I felt like taking out one of those, you you always got to kind of focus on the first disaster. Maybe that's thematic, where it has more of an incline, if you will, that it needs to be taken care of first because it's been going on the longest. That timer is kind of ticking, and you can move it back with the space station, but it just doesn't work like a lot of other games that I'm used to. Maybe that's a good thing. So overall, I'm going to recommend this game. I think that it will be added to a collection of people who like cooperative games. Alright, let's look at the rules here. So you're going to get a pretty standard book. It's going to come in. You are going to get a picture of all the components on the front, which is always really nice to me. I do enjoy seeing the components. If I ever we need to know what something is, it kind of tells me with a picture. That's super important. You're also going to get a look at a setup. Hopefully you can see that, where you can see the setup of the game. That's pretty nice. And we're also going to get an example of a game turn in the back. And that's going to encompass 2 pages. And that's going to be really, really nice to be able to see an actual turn of how it goes. And these are things that should be in every rule book that are not. It's going to be full color, which is great. And also an explanation of the ships was actually really important. For somebody who's never seen the show, when they're saying Thunderbird 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I was continually referring back to this page. I actually wish that would have been on the player aid, but it wasn't, because I don't know the difference between the ships. And likely, from a 50-year-old TV show for children, that most of us aren't. Although some of us still may have watched this when we were kids, or reruns, or maybe, hey, it's our favorite show ever. The rules are pretty clear. I think if you played Pandemic or Fire Rescue or something like this, this is going to go pretty well. There are examples in the book that are pretty helpful that are going to walk you through this sort of thing. So the book is fairly good. I think a read or two through, maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes if you're a slow reader, you should be able to get through it no problem. So this is a good rule book. I've seen much, much worse. Okay, so let's jump into the components here and take a look at these. We got some character cards, which are just regular cards you would have in the game, nothing special. The card stock is fairly good. You won't be shuffling these, but a lot of times this will come in hard cardboard, and you don't get that here. But you have still from the show to show the character, and some powers and icons that are fairly easy to use. I think this is probably the main guy from the show. I've never seen it, but John Tracy seems to be maybe the leader or some kind of main character. So those are pretty nice. I like those. You get a bunch of little tokens that are cardboard that you're probably used to seeing, and they're different colors and different icons. That should help if anybody's colorblind. You have the Hood character, who's a little miniature, who quite honestly could have been a cube. It could have been a piece of cardboard, but instead you get this mini that you can paint up if you choose to, and he looks pretty neat. Overproduction, sure. And you have these spaceships that are fairly neat, and these things come in. Here's one that goes up in space, looks like a rocket. They all have little holes in them. Here's the spaceship that's up there. Has fairly good details. What you see poking out of here, this is an actual person. These things can come off, and they move into different ships if you so choose. You got a rocket ship. You can see a couple of different colored guys. The color of the guys will correspond to, so the green guy will correspond likely to the green card. So it's fairly easy to see. Transport ship is nice that this little pops off and you can put people inside, and it comes back on it. So pretty good detail here. I think that's fairly nice. You get a bunch of cards. This is an example of a fab card with a still from the show, with some words at the bottom. Those are fairly good quality. And you're going to have a bunch of disaster cards here. So you got a ton of these to go through. I don't think they would use all of them in a game. The dice, fairly nice. You're going to see these are actually grained into it. Although some of the paint is coming off on some of these. You can't see it too well in the video, but my 2 is running a little thin. I've only played the game a few times, so that's not the greatest. And then you have these little player aids that help out. And these are just regular cardstock that you would get with the rest of the game. And they have some good information on it. Not everything that you need, but they're fairly good. And, I mean, the quality could have been better with maybe we're used to hard cardboard, but these actually work fairly well. And they don't get shuffled, so they should last a long time. And then the board, which you're going to see in flow, is fairly nice. I do like the graphic outline of it. It's just the world with a little bit of space at the top, and that's fairly nice. So those components are nice. Okay, so here's the game set up. Over here to the left, we have the 4 characters we've chosen to play with. You can set those up in any order that you choose to want to. Up here at the top of the board, we're going to have events, and the easy level is to have the scheme set up. The first one set up where you can see it, some events, level 2 and 3, and that can be put more difficulty. It's going to play a lot like Pandemic in a certain way, and you'll see that come up. You have the disaster deck, which is going to be set up to have these hood advance cards put in, which you can see here. And they're going to be put in kind of like the sporadically in as you're going to be shuffling this up like the cards in Pandemic, the epidemic cards. So they'll come up eventually and they'll move this hood, what's called hood, up through this track. And as it gets to certain parts, it will activate these event cards or these schemes where you'll lose the game. And if it ever gets all the way to the end, then you'll lose the game. And that's one way that you can lose the game. In addition, if these disaster cards ever fill up and you get all the way down here to the end, you will lose the game. And now to win the game, you have to succeed on the 3 schemes that you have, the 1, 2, 3 up here. And you're going to have these ships that you're going to move around the board. And they're going to move based on their movement skills, which could be 3, 2, 3, 1, 1. You can see them up in the corner. There is a little movement speeds. They can all move in different ways. And that will dictate some of your decisions that you're going to have. You're also going to have these fab cards that will help you during the game. This one says add +3 to any sea rescues. You might have move the hood back 1 space, move up to 2 pod vehicles. So they're going to do different things, but in reality, to move the hood up on the track, they may be a little expensive, but there may be times in the games you don't have a lot to do. You might want to take one of those. You're also going to have these pods that you can get out and move around the board with this transport device here. And they're going to help you accomplish some of these. So let's take a look at one of these. So this is a disaster one that you have here that you're going to be trying to accomplish. And here's the first one I kind of set up for us to accomplish. This tells you can do it. No dice rolls intended. This tells you where you have to be at in Africa. And then it kind of tells you, if you can see that there, what's required, which is spin an action to avert this disaster anytime Fab 1 and Thunderbird 4 are both in Africa. And this over here is going to be your reward, what you're going to get, which are going to be these tokens that are laid out. And these tokens are going to help you with these schemes. So we want to keep our eye on what the first scheme is here, which is going to be in Australia. We're going to need 2 of these particular tokens, of the orange ones. So we need to try to get those as quickly as possible. Not a lot of time to waste in this game, although you'll be wasting a tremendous amount of time. So there's 4 possible actions that you can do. You can look here on a handy dandy thing you can do, which is move. You can rescue, which is kind of roll the dice and avert those disasters. You can plan, which is go in the fab cards and move the hood up the track. Or you can scan if you're in the white ship up at the top. You can then scan, which is move these disaster cards backwards. So let me give you kind of a round of play, what you would do. The first thing we'll do is the yellow guy is going first, Gordon Tracy. So he's going to move, I think. So he's going to move 1 space, 2, 3. And the reason why is we're trying to get to Africa to accomplish this disaster so we can prevent it from occurring. And that's going to be his turn. And then you're going to pull over on your disaster card at the end of your turn, scooch them all down, and add it to the list. And then it'll be the next player's turn. And the reason why he only got to move is because his ship moves 1 space per action. So it required 3 actions to get to Africa, which is where we wanted him to be. So on Lady Penelope's turn, as you can see her little character card here, once per action, she can draw one of those tokens. These tokens are going to be invaluable. And then she can, once per turn, does not require an action, exchange it. So she can take this token once per turn with an action, and then once per turn, exchange it in. We're going to take this, it's kind of planning you're going to have to do, because we want to accomplish that scheme card that we're going to need. So we're going to put that down for her.
And she's also going to move to Africa with her second action in order to defeat this. Now, it requires an action, as it says here, requires an action. So that'll be her third action to finish this off. And she'll have done her third action, and the reward for this will then be that blue chip, which she'll get. And now, on your turn, you can do any number of operations, which I'll show you here in the book. You can transfer characters back and forth from ships, which we'll see in a minute. You can load and unload from this big ship. This is going to be a transport ship, and it's kind of neat how it will open up. You can put things inside of it, and it'll transport things around. Mostly these pods, although you can move other ships. A little bit of planning involved in that. You can defeat the schemes, which are here at the top. So in this particular one, we just need to get to Australia and have 2 of these particular tokens, these orange ones, when we get there. So that'll be very helpful for us. And then we get the reward at the bottom, which is a fab card. And we defeated the scheme. And then the fourth one will be to use any of the effects of the bonus tokens. So each of these tokens down here we get will also have something they can do. So they might do a re-roll or draw a fab card. See if I can get that in focus there for you. Take an extra action, re-roll, add +2, collect, and if you get this one down here, the little asterisk sign, it's a wild card. So they can all do things for you in addition to accomplishing those scheme cards up there. So that's going to end her turn. I'm not going to do anything else there. And then we're going to put on a new disaster. And this is what's kind of interesting. I believe this is how the game works from what I can understand. Every disaster moves down. It doesn't require a card to push it down. So you're going to see little blanks here where it's 1, 2, 3, 4's blank, and then 5. And the reason why that's going to be is anybody, if you're here on the starboard on your turn, you're going to be able to push this back as an action. Because remember, you don't want to get it down here to the end. If it gets down here to the end, you will lose the game. So it can be a little bit tricky because sometimes you'll get something that will be very hard for you to accomplish at the beginning of the game. So this is an 11. There are some of them that require 3 pods to be out, and these pods can be a little difficult to get out. So you get a bad card here at the beginning. From what I can understand from the rules, it can be kind of taxing here to win that. So this white one will never move. It'll always kind of sit there in orbit, and you're also going to have some places up here in space that you can go into. So that can be fairly interesting. So let's take another turn. It's going to be Virgil Tracy's turn. And you got 6 of these characters that come in the box. The game plays up to 4, so there can be a little bit different. Let's take a look at what he has here. He gives you +2 to any land rescues, and once per turn you may draw one of these green tokens for free. And you'll see that a lot of the characters allowed to draw a token that matches their color. That can be fairly interesting. So you do want something like Virgil doing the lands because that +2 to the roll. I'm going to go ahead and do something just to kind of show you how it works out. So we'll go ahead and go with Virgil. What we're going to do is we're going to transfer him. Remember, that's a free operation. Doesn't require an action. Into this ship so he can move it around. Now you'll notice that the blue is not one of the characters we chose out. They're still included in the game because all the cards are going to require them for bonuses. So you actually just have to kind of move them around as if they're NPCs. So let's say we want to move over here to Africa because we want to try to accomplish... let's say we want to go to Africa because we want to try to accomplish this card right here. We're going to get a bonus for having the blue guy there. And that's going to be a +2, which is why we jumped into his ship. So we want to try to get there the best we can. It's kind of out of focus there, but that's what we're trying to do. So the blue can move 3 spaces to get to Africa. 1, 2, 3. And then to accomplish this card, you'll see up here in the top, and maybe you can see it, which is an 8, which is what we're trying to accomplish here. So see if I can get a little better on that. So the 8 is what we're trying to accomplish here. So that means we just need a roll of 8. Now Scott, who is the blue guy, who's not a character that we're playing with, but I was able to move him because the green guy's turn had him in a ship. We'll add +2 to any of the rolls. Now, if I had Gordon there, which, luckily, I do have Gordon there, so we're going to get another +2. So, per this card, we need an 8. We have to be in Africa. If we win it, we get a tile of our choice. A little flavor text there about what happened. Help the explorers escape from the pyramid in the Sahara Desert. So it kind of tells you what's going on. A nice picture there. So we need an 8, which means we're going to roll these 2 dice. And we get, if you get this symbol, which is the hood, then what we have to do is we have to move the hood up 1 and a little closer to the next event occurring, which we are not going to want to happen. Those are not going to be good. Luckily, we rolled the 4. The 4 plus the 2 for this and 2 for that is 8. So we were able to accomplish this. We put this in a discard pile. We get our reward, which is any token we want. We kind of want the other +2 because we want to defeat that scheme up there. So he'll have there. So now my job is going to be to get Virgil and to get Lady Penelope up to Australia, which is listed on the scheme card. We want to get to Australia as quickly as possible to accomplish that scheme. Now, it doesn't have to be their turn to move. I can put them in other cars with their permission and kind of move them around. Now, problem I'm going to have is this is a 1-seater, this is a 2-seater in full, this is a 2-seater and it's full. So it's going to be John's turn next. So I may have some problem getting him over there, but we got time. So what will happen next is we've spent 2 actions, 1 moving, 1 doing the disaster. So now what we're going to try to do is decide what we want to do. And I'm going to do something that we probably shouldn't do, but just to illustrate it, I'm going to take a fab card, which this one's going to say Powder Compact Radio. Move the blue and or green ship and or yellow ship to Lady Penelope's space if she is on Earth. So this would be a card I can play whenever I want. I got to move the hood up 1, which will then trigger this event card. Because what happens is, if you can see it on the board, there's a number of spaces. And then once the space, you can kind of see the little hood marker on it. Once it's covered up, I must do this. And this will sometimes have not very good effects. Pod hydraulic sabotage. Let me put this down here just so we can take a look at it. Thunderbird 2 may not load or unload Fab 1 or Thunderbird 4 until a character in space discards that particular token. So we would have to discard one of those in order to be able to load. So this is going to, they kind of sabotage our ship, and this will stay out on the board game just to illustrate that it is hurting us. And that's kind of how the bad guy moves. And those are randomized. We won't have the same ones for every single game. So the next player's turn will be John Tracy, this guy up here. Now what's interesting that he can do is, for an action, he can move one of these disaster cards backwards, okay? And that's going to be a powerful thing that's going to come up depending on how many players are playing. So he'll do 2 actions to kind of push this back, and that can be very, very powerful. It doesn't seem like it'd be that great, but it can be, because remember, if it gets down to the end, it's going to move. It doesn't have to be pushed to be moved. From my understanding of the rules, it's going to move on its own. So spending 2 actions to do that can be very, very powerful. And then what you do is just kind of plan these out to try to trigger that scheme as quickly as possible. And if we were to fast forward a little bit, and we were able to get the green and the pink over to Australia, they have the 2 tokens. They'd give this up, and this scheme would then be accomplished, and they would get the fab card, whoever's turn it was, to do that. And you want to accomplish 3 of these schemes. That's kind of the rule of the game. So on your turn, to reiterate, you can move. If it's your turn and you're in the ship, you can roll one of these dice to avert these disasters. You can take a fab card, but it requires you to move the hood up 1. And if you're this guy, you can push the disaster guys back 1. As free actions, if you will, what they call operations, you can move people from ship to ship. You can load or unload onto this support ship. You can defeat the schemes, does not require an action. Or you can use these bonus tokens that do different things based on this little chart right here, if you will. And that pretty much is going to be Thunderbirds. Hopefully I've done...
Now, let's talk about who should buy this game. If you're a fan of Thunderbirds, this is going to be an instant buy. If you're a fan of the show, you've been looking for a licensed product for a long time, this is a Matt Leacock game. It's a very good game. It comes with great components. You're going to enjoy it. If you have a fan club and you love the Thunderbirds and this is your thing, this is going to be a game that you're going to want. And this is going to be a game that's going to be an instant buy in your collection. Who else now? I think cooperative fans will like this game. If you're a fan of Pandemic, Fire Rescue, Dead Men Tell No Tales, Police Precinct, you like games like that where it's kind of the puzzle, you gotta maximize your actions. This is it. This is in the same vein. This is Matt Leacock, Pandemic fame, Forbidden Island. This is going to be the same type of game. So it's different enough where you can have both in your collection. I feel if you're a fan or a bigger fan of this type of genre, this type of game, I think you can have this in. If it's just a casual thing, you don't really like them, you might want to go with Pandemic as your one. If you're sick of that, want to move on, this can be great. The space, the running around, I like the disasters, the hood, the timer mechanism, that's all good. I think you can play this with non-gamers. I think you're going to have a problem with the alpha player still in this. You're going to be bossing people around. But at the end of the day, everybody makes their own decision. If you don't have a problem with that with Pandemic, you're not going to have a problem with it here. Let's see. As for who else should buy this, I think most casual gamers are going to like this. They're not based on the theme. There's a lot of games kind of like this. So if you like this sort of puppet theme, maybe the kids will be drawn into it. I don't know if this is going to be really for children, though. I hope that helps. That should tell you if you're going to buy it or not. Watch the flow of the game. See if it's something that could appeal to you. Maybe try before you buy, especially if you played some of the other ones. They all kind of tend to run together. But this is a good one, so enjoy.